Hello everyone, Ron Johnson here from L.T.L Tutoring Central. And if you're looking for tips and strategies to help with your learning, you are in the right place. A question came up recently, and it's a question that comes up frequently. Why do I study and understand everything, and then when I go into the exam or the test, I write the wrong answers? And how can I fix this? Well, I've titled this video, Know the Material, because that's the short answer, and it's a great answer. But I'm going to go into a little bit more detail to help you out with this situation. I'm going to mention something that most learners use as a reason, and I think as a comfort to themselves. And then I'm going to suggest that that's probably not the primary answer, probably not what you should continue to think. So let's get started. First of all, I want to say congratulations on asking the question. It's always important to ask questions, especially if you see that things are not going the way you want them to. You're not getting the grade, or you're not getting the scores, or you're just not understanding the material to the extent that you think you should. It's always good to ask questions and then seek the answers and then take action. Those steps are also important. So sometimes people ask a lot of questions, but they don't listen for the answers, or they listen for the answers, they nod their head, but they don't take action. So you have to do all three. You can't just ask the questions. You can't just listen, although that's important. You have to take action as well. So one of the most common explanations that students of all ages use when they don't do well in an exam is that I panic during exams, or I panic during tests. And that can be true. It can be partially true. It can also be an excuse. And I know that's a bit controversial, but I think that sometimes we use panic as an excuse to get out of something or to reduce our own responsibility. And before you jump all over me, believe me, I know all about panic. I still panic, and I'm old, and it still happens. But you have to learn to control it. You have to learn ways around it. You have to learn methods that you can use to make it help you. Because sometimes a certain amount of stress, probably not panic really, but a certain amount of stress can actually motivate you and help you to do well. So I want you to stop using panic as an excuse for doing poorly on anything, including tests and exams. It's true that panic can reduce your availability to the material. Your mind can draw a blank sometimes. But there are techniques, there are things you can do to help with that. But I think the better and more actionable explanation is that I did not know the material well enough. If you know the material well enough, even if you panic, apart from maybe passing out, you will come through. Usually once you get started, once you settle down after the first few minutes, that material will be available for you. It's like muscle memory, and it will come back. And I know this from personal experience. At the university, yes, there were times when I thought, I'm going to do terrible. I'm going to fail this exam. I did not know about all the study techniques and strategies that I teach now. This was when I was a student myself. Well, I'm still a student, but we're always students in my mind. For the rest of my life, I will be a student. But at the university, I was still new to the university and just didn't know how to handle exams very well. But I did know the material. So even on the tests that I thought, or the exams that I thought I would do very poorly, once I got started, once I settled down, that material was available to me, and I wrote the test, and I did far better than I thought. Even after I left the test, I thought, I don't know how I did on that exam. I'm not so sure. Maybe I blew it. Maybe it was terrible. And then the results came in and they were fine. How did I do that? Well, I did it because I knew the material so well that my brain helped me out. On one half, it was panicking. On the other half, it knew the material. So you can do it too. I've mentioned this before in other videos and in some of my courses. Begin learning on the first day of class, if not before. I usually don't even mention the if not before. I just decided to put it on this slide today. But absolutely, you start learning that course's material on the very first day. Now, maybe there's not a lot to learn on the first day, but you begin. And the idea of this is to be prepared, to be motivated, to set yourself up in a sort of mental environment that you are going to learn this course, the material from this course. And if you don't start on the first day, you're already behind. Now, don't stop, keep going, but the idea is to get started right away and keep learning all the way through. That way you're not preparing for a test or an exam in the last week or the last day, or sitting up all night drinking coffee, trying to stay awake so you can prepare for the exam. That should never, ever be necessary. If you are learning all the way through and using proper study techniques, there is absolutely no reason why you should be doing that in the last week, the last day, and certainly not an all-nighter. I find those absolutely ridiculous. So the title of the video is Know the Material, and that is the essential piece of information that I want you to gain from this video. You have to know the material as well as possible. And you do not know the material if you're looking at it. You're reading it, you think you understand it, and in a way you do, but you don't know it. You only know it when you're not looking at the material. So you have to get away from the text, get away from whatever you're learning, and then see if you understand it, then see if you know it. So you need to close the book, walk away from the computer, and discover for yourself, do I really know the material? Do I really understand the material? Or do I only know it when I'm actually looking at it? Now, I know that sounds silly, and you're going to say, oh, I never do that. Lots of students do that. Over 25 years, I've seen many, many students who have told me, I understand everything. I understood everything before I went into the exam or the test, and then I didn't. I blew it. I couldn't. The answers wouldn't come to me. I know them, but they won't come to me. And I said, well, tell me now. Well, they can't tell me now either because they didn't know the material. The truth is we don't always know the material as well as we think we do. So get away from it and make sure that you actually do understand it. One way to do this is to self-test. And again, that might seem very obvious, but a lot of people don't do it properly. You have to literally test yourself as if you were in a test or an exam. That means you are not constantly looking back at the material. You're setting yourself up with several questions at least, and you're going through all of them and writing down the answers. And you can set up yourself with multiple choice. You can set yourself up with matching and true, false, things like that. But the idea is that you need to test yourself and then look back. But don't look back every 2 seconds or 2 minutes. Do a number of questions, a volume of the material, and then look back and see if you're correct, see if you truly understood it. And where you were weak or didn't know, you can strengthen that, and then you self-test those areas again. Focus on the material you don't know. I didn't make a slide for that, but I've talked about it before. A lot of people like to focus on what they already know because it makes you feel good. But focus on the weaker areas and the areas you don't know. You want to brush up on everything, but focus on the parts that challenge you the most. I know it's not the nicest idea, but it is the best idea to strengthen those weak spots. You can also talk about the material to yourself or to others, if anyone wants to listen. You can work in groups as well. Just make sure that the group is studying and not just wasting time and having coffee and going over all the things they already know and showing off how intelligent they are. Make sure that you're challenging one another, just as I said, to challenge yourself. Make sure that it's a challenging study session. If it's too easy, you're probably not learning much. So you want to know the material. You want to write about it as well, if possible, especially if you know the test or exam is going to have written answers, or especially longer written answers, because you need to not only know the facts, but you need to know how to manipulate those facts, how to use them in sentences and paragraphs and explain it. But even if it's a multiple choice or some other kind of test or exam, talking to yourself about the material and writing about it can clarify everything for you, can make it real for you. And then when you go into the exam, you'll be that much further ahead. There you have it, a few tips on how to know the material and reduce your stress and panic. Because one of the primary ways that you can reduce your stress is to know the material so well that you have nothing to worry about. If you're a grade 11 student, let's say, and I was going to give you a grade 3 math test, you probably wouldn't be very stressed at all because you know the material so well. Come on, it's easy. I did that years ago, and it's simple. Adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. I can do all of those things, no problem. That's the idea. Know the material backwards and forwards. Get it familiar to yourself as much as possible, and that will reduce the stress. It might not eliminate it, but remember, a little bit of stress is good. It motivates you to do well. So learn to live with it. I've tried to get rid of my own, and I don't know if it's possible, to be honest. I think promises are out there. I'm not sure it's possible. So learn to live with yourself, learn to live with that stress, and use it to your advantage. Use it to push you and motivate you to do better. And you can reduce the stress, and you can eliminate the panic to some extent by just knowing the material very, very well and seeking help from others. That's also a good idea. There are more tips and strategies in my Udemy courses. I have a study skills course there and tips and strategies for tests. That's not the exact name, but so check those out. I'll put some information below for you. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click on the notification bell. All of those things help move the video up in the algorithm and helps me to reach more students with tips and strategies to help them with their learning, and I would appreciate it very much. Of course, comments also help with the algorithm. So comments, questions, suggestions, things you might want to see on a video, let me know either below here if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're watching it somewhere else, you can also go to my website and email me from there. I'm always interested in what people want to know and want to learn, or what they have already learned. You might have some tips and suggestions for me, so that's also a very good idea. All right, I'm going to give you some contact information in just a moment, but in the meantime, it's Ron Johnson from L.T.L. Tutoring Central. One last bit of information, there's my email, tutoringcentral@inbox.com, and the website is www.tutoringcentral.com.